So I played Hollow Knight, and I've got a couple things to say about it. Where do you even start with this one? I'm not sure, but we gotta pick somewhere. So I have a lot to say about Hollow Knight, and I could really go on for hours and hours. So to avoid saying things that other people have said for however many years and however many videos about this game, I'm gonna stick to my design takeaways and my feelings during the game. And one thing I put together to help me stay more organized and keep my thoughts in place as I went on in the game is I started a gaming log. Well, more of like a gaming journal to help track my score over time. So what I'm going to do, in the respect to people that are just looking for the score, I'm just going to tell you what my final review score is of the game. I'm ending up at around 85% out of 100 after approximately 43 hours in the game. I am now at 92% complete, and I feel I'm at a good spot. I did defeat the Hollow Knight. I did get the credits to roll, but then I realized there was more after that, and so I'm in the process of trying to 112% the game, you know? So I'm going to divide this video up into 4 sections now. One for the early game, then the mid game, late game, and then my experience after defeating the Hollow Knight. So coming back after getting credits and trying to get more of the game's story unlocked. So if you're looking to hear just what I think about the White Palace, that's going to be at the very end. And boy, do I have some things about that to say. Actually, there's a few things about a lot of these maps I have to say, but that one specifically needs some discussion. Alright, so section 1, the early game. Starting off, you go through this tutorial area. It's kind of cool. I like how it sets the vibe right away. It tells the player with the theme, the music, and the early gameplay what kind of game you're playing. You're not playing a happy game. You're not playing a game where there's a happy ending. And that theme continues for a while. There are ups and downs where maybe that isn't the case. For this first section, I'm kind of wandering around the Forgotten Crossroads. Now, the thing that hits me right away is I've never played a Metroidvania. I've never played a 2D platformer focused on exploration. There are a lot of things that I'm used to as like creature comforts for platformers that I don't have here, and it's kind of weird, and I don't really know what I'm getting into. And so my first kind of takeaway is this would be really hard as an introductory to a Metroidvania. If I hadn't watched some videos on like Metroidvanias and seen discussions on genres before, I would be entirely lost. This game would be really hard to jump into as a first Metroidvania for a non-gamer, which made me think of those games where like, what is gaming like for a non-gamer? I think this would be, you'd be underwater really fast and completely lost on what's going on, which is exactly what happened to me. I spent the first couple hours just wandering around the crossroads trying to figure out what the heck was going on, and I couldn't do it for a while. I was getting kind of frustrated, a little bored, but I had to power through because I know this is like a legendary game. I should love this. This is right up my alley. What's going on? Why am I having such a hard time figuring out what's going on? My first takeaways of the game, besides just the navigation that's confusing, is the combat feels really good. Like it's nice to swing the sword. It's really responsive. The platforming is kind of but the platforming doesn't seem to be like the main focus of the game. It's more of a navigation, exploration game. It actually took me a couple hours to figure out that I was going in circles around where the boss's chamber was, and only after I talked to the map maker for the first time did I realize, whoa, I am missing a lot and I'm getting lost. I need to pay more attention when I'm walking around. Because that stag station in the Forgotten Crossroads, I didn't discover until like 20 some hours into the game. I totally missed it and ignored it. The first stag station I got was in Green Path. Is that embarrassing? Is that bad? Should I have discovered it before then? I don't know, but that's what happened. The thing I will say about this is kind of similar to what I said about Celeste. Like, the people that don't understand how to play this style of game, they're going to quit right away. They're not going to stick around and figure out what's going on here. They're just going to refund and get out of there. And maybe it's similar to how Celeste doesn't hold back on its first challenges. It lets you know what kind of game it is and if you're going to like it or not like it right away. Another instance of letting the player decide whether they want to spend their time on it or not, and respecting their time. I don't know that they implemented it as well in this one because there is a lot of hooks to start with, but there's something definitely missing from the hooks, and that's my next takeaway from this starting section. Why the heck are we here? What is the purpose of exploring Hollow Nest? Why does this character want to get to Hollow Nest so bad? What's the point? Exploration is fun. Combat is fun, but why? What's the story? What is behind it? And all the NPCs are pretty ambiguous with what you're doing here. some are even indifferent. So I'm running around trying to figure out what is my purpose here, which mystery is all well and good. We know from detective games and exploration games, even survival games like The Forest, like the mystery is intriguing, it pulls you in. But those games at least set up why you're there. Hollow Knight does not do that. Hollow Knight leaves the player searching for a purpose amongst the ruins of an ancient city. So why are we here? Normally, in my opinion, this would be kind of a game ender. This would be where the game just dies. Cool attempt, but not going to make it. But why does Hollow Knight get away with it? And I think it's the Hollow Knight's way of giving agency to the player. I think it's Hollow Knight's way of letting them know that it's okay for you to discover your purpose. The quest for purpose is itself a purpose. And it's not on the surface, and I didn't really think about it until later in the game. I didn't even realize that I didn't know why I was here. I didn't have a driving purpose other than to just play the game, which was kind of weird to me that I didn't notice and that I didn't really care and that was fine. Later in the game it becomes more prevalent, but we'll talk about that there. I think it's kind of cool that the NPCs that you meet, their ambiguity towards your purpose kind of fuels your agency and builds onto this. It fuels you having many theories, many ideas as to why you're there, but you're still guessing. It's like one of those games that you're not actually intended to be the main character. You're more watching an anime, which is really held by this style of anime, hand-drawn traditional animation that the game went for. Alright, so now we're a couple hours in. We've gone to a couple areas. We've gone to Green Path. I've gotten to the Fungal Wastes, I think it is. Kind of brushed up against the Fog Canyon. Starting to get deeper into the game, into its combat mechanics, into its boss structures. And I've had a few boss fights. Yeah, I think I've a couple at this point. And I'm really starting to realize that, hey, wait, is this actually a Souls-like game? Could I like Souls-likes? Yeah, I think I could. I didn't think I would before, but this game's kind of making me think that it's kind of my style, that would be a lot more fun. But with it being a Souls-like, that being something I didn't expect, something I really am starting to notice is the shortcomings in the platforming. I thought the platforming would be a lot tighter. I don't really like the jump. I don't think it feels very good. And some of these areas, the platforming is really starting to show itself. The combat is really tight, really, like, it fits really nicely. Everything is super responsive. And then you get the platforming, where it just really isn't. It doesn't feel as good. It's a nice traversal mechanic, but it's not a platformer. And there are some areas where it requires good platforming, and I don't really think that fits here too well. And we'll talk about that more later, as I'm sure some of you Hollow Knight experts know where I'm going with this. So that brings us to the end of our early section, where I'm just getting into the game. I've learned a lot about this. I really do enjoy it, and my rating of the game is really on the upswing here. The early parts were pretty slow, and there were some parts that I felt were kind of boring and frustrating, but the game is starting to teach me that, hey, if you can't go there right now, you should come back. And so I'm taking mental note of where I can go in the future and what abilities might be available to me later. I do think the game is doing a good job of training me on navigation, that don't get too frustrated if you can't go there now. Don't worry, you'll be able to go there when it matters. Just have some patience. I think it's good that it shows you some areas that are like, hey, this is an area you could be. You want to be here, right? You want to go there? Yeah, well, you can't yet. You gotta wait. I think that does solidify in the player a little bit of drive to, okay, well, what is that? I can speculate about it. What is it going to be like? Oh, that definitely looks like a wall jump. I should be able to wall jump for that. Okay, so now I got to go find the wall jump. Where would that be? Well, there's this vertical section in Fog Canyon that you do a lot of it looks like there could be a lot of wall jumps. That could be a lot of fun. I don't think that's where I got my wall jump, but you get to speculate about that. The other thing the game is doing really well is it's tossing in some tough boss fights for the movement set that I have, and some not so tough ones. And it's not rushing me into areas. Like, I never feel at any point that I'm railroaded towards going somewhere, or that I have to go and do this. I do feel there are things where I need to go and handle it to progress, where I know that that ability's got to be over there, so I'll have to go over there at some point. But it never actually forces me to do it. There's always other stuff on the side to do. Okay, middle section. This is definitely where the game slows down as far as story, in my opinion. You get some cool areas, like I got to City of Tears here. I got to Kingdom's Edge. I got to Deep Nest for a little bit. I've unlocked just about most of the map here. And I still don't really know why I'm here. The combat is feeling more smooth. It's improved a lot with some new mechanics, some new charms that I can use. I've got more health, I've got more notches, and I'm starting to figure out, okay, these are the charms that I like to run with. And that's fun. It's cool to kind of build out your own kits for, okay, this is my navigation build. All right, now I got to switch to my boss fighting build. That's a lot of fun. The platforming is really starting to reveal itself here. I get to the Queen's Gardens near the end of this section, and oh my goodness, that has got to be where all of the shortcomings of the platforming come out all at the same time. I really think that this is a game that they wanted to be a platformer at the start, and there are points where they remembered, oh yeah, this is a 2D platformer Metroidvania, but it never really feels good so far. And the levels don't seem perfectly designed for this. So my theory, and this is like looking at it from how I've started designing my other games, I think they designed the map and then later on they made tweaks to the character controller. I think that's what's going on, because things just seem like a couple pixels off, or just like a second too late, or that ledge is just a little too high and it forces this jump to be a little harder than I think it needed to be, or you don't hold the jump button for quite as long and the dash doesn't quite make it all the way there, or it makes it a little too far. But the bosses are really starting to lock in. I'm liking this bosses around every corner now. I'm having a lot of fun taking on the creatures, but I'm starting to feel very underpowered. Like I'm at hour 18 when I feel like so underpowered, like I gotta be missing something. And then I realize I did. I missed the sign to point me to the blacksmith. I didn't know they were there. I didn't know this was a feature for about 20 hours into the game. Oh my god, this was game changing. So now that I've got my nail upgraded, I upgraded it twice right away. So I had because I had been to the resting area already at this point by the time that I got this upgraded nail. Like, I don't think you guys understand how much pain I went through without this nail. Now everything feels amazing. I'm cutting through things like butter, and I got like actual purpose in looking for this item, like trying to find more pale ore, and everything feels so much better. There was actually an instance where I was down in the deep nest and there was a boss I was trying to beat down there without the upgraded nail, and it just, oh, it sucked. And then I finally got it and went back, and it felt so good. Like, I didn't have to dodge for 3 hours trying to kill this thing. The dodging felt good. The boss fight actually felt balanced and wasn't as unfair as it felt before. Game changer. Anyways, what I'm going with that is this game does a really good job with visual navigation. It's got signs everywhere pointing to everything, except for this one time. There's only one sign pointing to this guy, and I totally missed it. And if you miss it, nothing ever points it back to you. There's no references from any other place in the game, and I got lucky when I circled back, saw the sign, and thought, wait, hold on a second. Something's wrong here. Can I go this? Oh, I can go this way. Dang it. I missed that. Alright, they could have done a better job with this one, but overall, like, the visual signs and stuff is really cool and really atmosphere building, and I think a lot of games can take away from this in that it's okay to, like, use your theming to navigate people around. Like, if you want to put a road sign up, sure, why not? As long as it makes sense with the setting, it could be really cool. Instead of holding their hand, let them understand what the symbols mean. It takes them a little bit, but it's rewarding once you know it. Like, you learn about these shortcuts, and you learn about these different routes that maybe you wouldn't have noticed before. So it's kind of cool. So I'm getting to the 30-hour mark. I've been to just about every area, I believe. I know there's the Hive, but I can't find the way in there, and I don't want to spoil anything. I really went in blind to this one. The only reason I know the Hive is there is because I saw somebody else's screen. One of my friends was playing it, and I saw the Hive on their map and thought, what the heck, how'd you get there? But I'm still struggling for a purpose in the game. Like, I really don't understand, what am I doing here? Why am I doing all this? And it's becoming more ambiguous, like with the Dreamers coming out. Like, what is that even, what am I missing here? What is going on? Why am I here doing this? There are so many different ideas that could be fueled here. And again, I think this is the only game that I've played where they can get away with this, where they don't have to tell you the purpose, and the purpose is to find a purpose, which is kind of poetic, kind of beautiful, a little frustrating, but I can get past that. But I do want to talk about the boss fights, because now I think I've fought like 30 bosses at this point, because there's what, 47, 37, something like that. I gotta be getting close to 25 or 30 bosses. The boss fights I've noticed do a really good job of building on themselves. In the early bosses, they usually have like a single move set, a single mechanic, and you have to learn how to handle that one. And then in the middle area, they start to have 2 or 3, but they're familiar. They're similar to ones that previous bosses had. Now getting more into the late game, these are very complicated bosses, but they really only have 1, maybe 2 unique attacks, and then there's others that draw from the other bosses that you fought already. And I think this is a really good way of training your players to be better without forcing them to learn brand new unique things. This building on itself is the same way that I was building on combat outside of these boss fights, the same way it's trying to build onto like your navigation skills and your exploration plans here. They also force a lot of experimentation with the charms, which is pretty cool. But I did want to call out that boss fights can even build on each other, and this is another one of those games where the tutorial is kind of the game. The tutorial didn't even need to be its own thing, it just taught you the basic things. And throughout the entire game, you're learning new mechanics and mastering old ones. So really, by the time you beat the game, that's when the tutorial's over. That's when you stop learning new things, which is interesting. It's an interesting side of things. I also like how some of the fights were anticlimactic and others were extremely difficult, but all of them drove the story forward. All of them added character to the world that you were playing in, and that was a lot of fun. I really did enjoy that. And I'm a sucker for a good story, and this game keeps pushing it in your face and showing you new avenues in which Hollow Nest is not quite what you expect. Even when you think you got it figured out, you really don't. Alright, now we're getting into the late game here. I'm at hour 31, alright? Still don't know why I'm here, but you guys are probably used to me saying that. I need to talk about something I don't like about this game, something I definitively think does not fit and shouldn't have been here. The nail arts. I don't understand why they're here. This is a game about split-second decisions, fast reaction times, perfect movement, pattern recognition. And now they throw in this nail form that doesn't seem quite as powerful as the attacks that you could get off in that time, and you need to hold down a button to charge it up. It just feels slow, it feels clunky, I never know which one's supposed to be good. I don't get the feedback from it that tells me, hey, this is more powerful than several normal attacks. It always feels better to either back up and charge up your health, or just go in and start swinging as much as you can. It's a really cool story element to run around and learn these nail arts, but I never felt like it was worth it to actually use in a fight, except for one time in Deep Nest fighting those like sentinels in the tunnel. Those things, it kind of works there because you get to back up and there's no dodging or anything, you're just waiting for it to start attacking. That it kind of works on. I also like that the Forgotten Crossroads changed to the Infected Crossroads after the first streamer. I think that was really cool. I think it shakes up that area really well. I also wanted to talk a little bit about Dirtmouth, the town. I think that is a fantastic base city. I really like how it slowly evolves over time and your friends, or I guess sort of friends, go there and you get to visit, and it's a nice little resting area that always re-centers the player when you pick up the game. I think it does a really good job of anchoring the mood of the world and anchoring the player back into the game, so even if you set it down for a couple days, you can pick right back up and get back into the headspace you need to be for this game. I also like here that the story elements of the NPCs are starting to come together at this stage in the game, especially with like the teacher and the guy you meet there, and the Traitor Lord. Ah man, that one hurt. That fight hurt. I was so sad. I didn't know what to do. I thought it was my fault. I spent like the next hour and a half wondering, was it my fault? Did I just take too long to kill the boss? Was that on me? Am I responsible for this? Dude, no, you were my favorite one. That guy was my favorite side character. And then I had to go do that. And those of you that have played that part, you know, I'm not going to spoil it, but you know what I'm talking about. I do think that this game shows us a little different way to show NPC character development, that it doesn't have to be these people that you spend a lot of time with for them to be a character that matters. It can be 2 or 3 quick exchanges with them. I think these NPCs, you maybe exchange 7 or 8 sentences along the entire game leading up to the end of their story, and you feel so connected to them. So I think the takeaway here is impact, not duration, quality over quantity even. 3 or 4 really impactful conversations is probably better than several hours of filler dialogue. Both have their place, Don't get me wrong. Like in a game like I guess we can pick on Halo 5. If those characters had had more meaningful dialogue and longer experiences with the player, that probably would have helped in that instance. I don't know if it would have fixed it, but it would have helped. All right, I'm about to fight the Hollow Knight here. I'm at 86% complete. All right, the combat feels amazing. These boss fights are a lot of fun to practice and see what kind of combination of charms I can use to defeat them. And at this point, I really want to lay down that this game teaching you how to play it is really fascinating to take a look back at. How you don't have all of the movement mechanics, or you're playing a boss and something feels really difficult. After a while, it starts to click in your head that, okay, this fight seems unrealistically difficult. I must be missing a charm or a movement ability or an attack ability that makes this much easier. I gotta go find that. I'm gonna leave this boss fight and I'll be back. That happened the first time, like when I was going to fight the Watcher up in their tower. I had to deal with those knights outside their room. And I just felt like something is wrong. This is too difficult. What am I missing? What movement do I need to do this? So I left. And then a couple hours later, I found it, and boom. It was a much more exciting fight, much more balanced, much more fair. I had a lot more fun with it. Still died a lot, but you know, it was better. But I want to talk about the purpose thing again. I've mentioned that a few times. I'm about to fight what I believe to be the final boss of this game. And I don't know why. I assume it has something to do with the corruption and that I'm just trying to like cure it. That's my initial theory going into this game. Like I sit down at the bench outside the fight and see that I get my percent complete and that I'm at 80 something percent complete, 86%, maybe 83 before the fight. And I'm like, but why? And I go into this fight and I like, okay, it's another boss to fight. And before I go into like what the ending is like, I want to talk about the one place where this wasn't true, and probably my favorite area in the game, the Colosseum of Fools. And I didn't realize why this was my favorite area until I was writing this script, really. It's the only place in the game where you have a clear, defined purpose, where your objective is straightforward. You can achieve it quickly, and you feel like, all right, I can do this, be done, and move on. There's no loose strings. There's no unresolved conflicts here. It's just a quick one and done thing, or 3 and done with the challenges, I guess, but you get the point. It's very concise, very straightforward. It almost gives you a break from the I don't know why I'm here attitude of the rest of the game. But anyways, as I'm in this fight, I start to realize why I'm here. Things start to make more sense by my 30th attempt at the boss. Yeah, it took me a lot of tries. Okay, you don't need to judge me in the comments, or do. I don't care. Maybe say something funny. I beat the Hollow Knight, and then I realized the purpose as the credits start to roll. That is crazy that this game pulled off keeping the purpose from me for 37 and a half hours, and I still cared a lot, and then that ending was just devastating. I don't even know if it's a true ending, because I've heard people say true ending. So I don't know if it's the actual ending, but it felt like it. And that's where like I initially stopped. I beat it and it was like, that was an emotional ending, and I think I just need to set this game down. I didn't pick up the game again until 3 days before I'm recording this audio, and I'm recording it the day before this video goes live. Now I know there's more, but man, that was such a cap on the game. That was so great. I loved it. That was fantastic. I think I've said most of the big things that I wanted to say up until this point. I could go on for days. I'd love to chat with you guys more in the comments below, but we got a little bit more to talk about here. Because there is the late game. And really what that means is me going around trying to 100% the game. And then I completed the Dream Nail, because I didn't do that before. Now I've completed the Dream Nail, trying to run around and find bosses. And I finally get to the White Palace. You know, before this, I thought Crystal Peak sucked. I hated that. Oh my god, the White Palace is awful. I hate it. I beat it. I got through all of it, so get those get good comments out of here. I did beat it. Took me a couple hours. But this is the only other place in the game where I'm gonna say it feels like bad game design. It's exquisite level design, but I feel like it's bad game design, and here's why. No other place in the game required you to be good at platforming. The Queen's Gardens came close, but there's no lead up to this challenge curve. There's no warning. There's no reason. I had kind of accepted the platforms at the garden as like they were terraces, or they're meant to hold pots, and so they collapsed on you. All of the enemies up until this point had been logical creatures. It made a lot of sense. Now, throw in circular saws. Why? Why is this here? Why is it so pixel perfect? The level design is fantastic and definitely beats the Queen's Gardens, and I'll say that because I think this was added after they finalized the character controller. Everything feels really smooth. Everything feels the perfect distance apart. It feels like it's supposed to be where it is. But the character controller is not like perfect. It's not a 2D pixel perfect platformer, but this area requires it. And then there's not even a boss fight at the end. Like, come on, guys. There's a story element, and I understand it. I won't spoil it for you, because it actually does make things a little easier to do. But I don't like this area. Overall, I'm loving the late game, and my score is going up and is going to end up around that 90 point, or 88 point. But that's really all I have to say about the White Palace, and what follows after it is pretty cool. I'm still going through it. I'm at 96%, like I said. 96% now, complete. And I'm going to get to 112%. And we can talk about that in the Discord if you guys want to hear as I'm going on. But that is my takeaways from Hollow Knight. If you guys agree, disagree, have comments of your own, feel free to leave them down below. I look forward to seeing you guys during the next devlog, and then following on the next So I Played, which the next one is going to be Dead Cells. If you guys have recommendations for the following video, let me know. I'd love to check it out. Otherwise, I'll see you later.